Is it all about those inflation numbers?
Well, I think it's a weight of the evidence, right? If you're a macro analyst, you put a balance sheet together and say, okay, what's positive, what's not so positive? And I think Wall Street has a fatal attraction issue with Fed and interest rate cuts. And the weight of the evidence continues to suggest that they're not going to cut. I was here 3 months ago and they said, oh yeah, let's forecast a cut in 3 months. 3 months later, guess what? They have a meeting next week and they're going to suggest cutting in June. I don't think that's going to happen. The weight of the evidence says that.
So talk about the weight of the evidence. And I must say, you pointed something out that's fascinating, and that's the story of cocoa. I'm not sure I would have looked at cocoa, but if you look at the chart on cocoa, it's quite extraordinary.
It's totally extraordinary, but it's one of the 7 C's that I look at: cotton, coffee, cocoa, copper, crude, and corn. And those things together are weight of the evidence in terms of inflation. 6 of those 7 markets are in uptrends. Only corn has been a little bit weak. So that says that there's inflationary pressures out there. That's what you have to look at.
Well, that's the question. We put up a chart actually showing the price of cocoa versus the price of Nvidia, which you wouldn't think would be particularly correlated in any way, shape, or form. Yet they seem to track. Is that just a coincidence?
Well, I think when you get sort of into supply and demand shortages, particularly in commodities, there's nothing that moves more quickly. The point being that everybody thinks Nvidia is crazy, but cocoa is crazy, and it can get more crazy. And going back to Nvidia, if history is a guide, it may overtake Apple in terms of the second most capped stock. I don't think it's going to take over Microsoft. What that tells me is that we're in a particularly dangerous period in the stock market because you don't have this margin of safety. When you buy after a long downtrend, you have a margin of safety, right? The risk reward. Buying Nvidia here, it may go up 20, 30% from here, but what's the margin of safety? You
talked about the Fed's meeting coming up next week, and we don't expect there to be any movement next week, but they'll probably tell us something or signal what's going on. There's a lot of concern, including some board members actually, about the fact that we have very restrictive interest rates right now, that basically it will slow the economy down too much, and yet the economy doesn't seem to be slowing down, the stock market doesn't seem to be slowing down. So is it as restrictive as we think it is?
So on the surface, right, Bitcoin's at all-time high, gold's at all-time high, equities are right off their all-time highs, unemployment continues to track below 4%. That doesn't seem very restrictive to me. Atlanta GDP came out yesterday, over 2%. Michigan, and I always have to go back to Michigan, of course.
Go blue.
Right? Yeah. Their economic inflation expectations came out today at 3%, and that's been sticky there. So 3%, 2% real GDP, that's over 5% nominal interest rates. The 10-year's only at 4.3. If you add 1 real interest rate, you could start seeing them go towards 6. The 2-year today made new highs in yields for the year. So the yield curve's getting more steep. So there's definitely a little bit of uncertainty out there, which goes back to my point on the equity markets.
So what's an investor to do? How do you invest in that environment?
Look for that margin of safety. So in the case of the normal investor, if the stock market today is above all your elves' objective for the end of the year, getting a little bit defensive is okay.
Yeah. Take some money off the table?
Absolutely.
That's what so you would not be fully invested right now?
I'm never fully invested because you need to be diversified.
There's always some opportunity out there, you hope, right?
That's right.
Okay. Where are you looking for opportunities right now?
Well, I think, unfortunately, the energy market seems to have a little bit of some legs behind it. You're going into the summer driving season, and gasoline seems to be breaking out. If I were going to buy something with a bit of a margin of safety in case there's that would be the agricultural markets, which I just said, corn.